this computer. All right, internets, we are back with another live stream here on Facebook. I'm going to be up on YouTube as well. Sultans and Sneakers. I'm your host, Mahin Islam, here with my two good friends, Nabeel Khan, Adil Rahman. Adil Rahman, aka the bearded servant. Nabeel, just Nabeel, or aka Decepticon, aka Money Smart Muslim. Both Chicago guys. And just to discuss and like really analyze especially, you know, what happened like this week in like the last 48 hours. Something that I've never seen that is very shocking is that the downfall of a restaurant called Nini's Deli. I don't know if I know you haven't been there. Nabeel's familiar with the shop. It's basically a shop that's cute. It's a Cuban shop. To say it's even Cuban is kind of like just a little short. They do kind of like fusion stuff, but it was known to be halal, so that's why the Muslims frequented it. There are people questioning that now. That's a side point that we can maybe get into, but you know, anyways. And then their owner basically took some social media positions, and one thing led to another. And 48 hours ago, they were a top 50 restaurant on Yelp nationally, and as of today, they are officially shut down. Unofficially or officially, what do you want to call it? So, I kind of briefed Adil on the show on what went down, but like what I'll do is I'll kind of I know Nabeel. I think the way to do this is just we'll just kind of go time frame by time frame, and then we'll kind of like take a step back and see what happened, and at the end of the day, just like examine. You know, does that sound fair to you guys?
Yeah, that's what's
all
up.
right. Cool. So yeah. So just real quick, that's what Nini's is this restaurant. It's just north of downtown. It's a popular spot. The spot I go to about once a month, even though I live like out of the way. I've always liked the guys there. Juan Elias Riesco, the owner, you know, guy I've known for about a year and a half. We, you know, every time I try to go in, I try to go in there and talk to him. We just have conversations about random stuff. So I always knew what he's coming from. He's a you know, wear on your sleeve Christian guy, right? He's always talking about Jesus. Says he was saved about 5-6 years ago, I think, roughly. And, you know, he knew I was Muslim. We knew our disagreements, but we were always able to have very, you know, candid conversations. And so, I always respected his point of view. And I appreciate the fact that he like supplied halal meat, especially for a kind of market that we didn't have access to, right? So what went down? George Floyd's murder goes down. That was almost 2 weeks ago, right? Like Memorial Day. People started coming out condemning it. Nini's running business as usual. As of last Saturday, I understood that they had their biggest, most profitable day of the year. And I had spoken to Juan last week. We were talking about how it's been under Corona. And he told me, brother, business is booming. Like it's on, and I would notice it as well because he would sell out of his food like before closing time. He would like post on his IG. The one time I went before Ramadan, there was like a 45-minute line before he went to the cash drop app. So you have like, so there was certainly like Corona, he was able to like do a quick change. He was able to adjust and he maximized what he had to do, right? So he was doing well. Anyways, nothing. Then you had the riots that like all the riots, the looting, protesting happened last weekend. And then somewhere along the line, he made a post of some kind regarding like, hey, we condemn this injustice and yeah, you know, you're kind of a generic post kind of in that sense that people would perceive as. And I noticed on the comments that people were saying like, well, Juan, you know, where you been? You know, it's been, you know, a week, etc. You know, you're for the black culture, but you're not talking about Black Lives Matter, etc. So I see this, whatever, you know, people are kind of in the comments saying some stuff. Tuesday, because of the looting, I know they did not open. They said they put an IG story out. They're like, hey, we're not going to be open on Tuesday. We just don't know when we're going to reopen. And then they did open back up on Wednesday. I guess they felt like it was safe. At this point, you've got you got people starting to like ask questions like, hey, what's your position on Black Lives Matter? How come you're not speaking? How come you're not being very direct? Like, I'm for Black Lives Matter. So that's the first. Let's talk about that real quick. I want to give the mic to Nabeel because I want you to analyze this as a person of faith, but also as a business owner. This first step which looking back, I think this is really where if he's able to navigate this the right way, we are not in this situation right now.
I have so many thoughts running through my mind, but I'll address the faith part first, right? Regardless if you're Muslim, Jewish, Christian, Buddhist, Hindu, whatever faith you may follow, there's some principle within faith that falls under empathy and grace and understanding how another person feels, right? So I think within Christianity, they have a similar saying that we have as Muslims: want for your brother what you want for yourself, right? Want for thy neighbor what you want for yourself. And I think if you really examine that statement, you'll really understand the power of grace, empathy, and love and sincerity that's packed into there, right? So when it comes to taking certain controversial stands, right? When it comes to matters like this, like what happened, it behooves me that individuals don't want to go back and really look at stuff from a graceful, logical, and educational perspective, right? Especially when it comes to the murder that happened to Mr. George Floyd. You got to sit there and you got to look at it on a deeper end, like, man, these injustices to African Americans have been happening before the beginning of time, with the whole concept of slavery, then the civil rights movement, all the way down to the mass incarceration and mass incarceration and locking up inappropriately of African American men. And women for that matter. And now most recently, all these cop killings dating back to Trayvon Martin. So I think if we were to go back and educate ourselves as humanity, right, and seeing the injustice and really truly understand why they feel the way that they feel, then we would be very careful and mindful and aware of what comes out of our mouth. So with that being said, right, I think all that falls under the premise of faith. So when I look at the way of the Prophet ﷺ, the way he walked, it's not a racial conversation right now that I'm going to narrate about the Prophet, but it's how he dealt with somebody with grace and empathy, right? So we know that famous story about the lady that would always wait for the Prophet ﷺ to traverse down a particular path, and she would always throw dirt and rubbish on top of him, right? And the Prophet ﷺ would take it, he would just clean himself off, and he would keep moving. She would do it over and over again. There was one time where she wasn't able to do it. She was sick or something to that nature within this story. He goes and he visits her. And he says, hey, I didn't see you today, right? What's going on? What's wrong with you? Come to find out, she was sick for whatever was going on, whatever ailments that she had. It was the grace and empathy that he didn't see her, and that naturally won her over, and she ended up becoming Muslim. We know the rest of the story. So now when I look at what happened to George Floyd, right, and this vivid memory that keeps playing on YouTube and other channels, I can't breathe, and you make an inflammatory statement. I don't know if I want to label it to be reckless or if I want to say, man, you just didn't have grace and empathy towards the situation to actually peel back and see why individuals are reacting the way that they're reacting, and maybe just turn around and check in on individuals that may be affected by that situation. So that's on a religious end, right? Mm-hmm. But from a business perspective, when I look at business, I feel like, business at the end of the day, there are social matters that we should support, and there might be social matters that you don't want to support. Ultimately, that's up to the business owner himself. However, I do think that there's a social responsibility you have in regards to how you say something, because you're ultimately going to be faced with a high level of scrutiny regardless of what position you take. So my position on this is that I wouldn't have said much at all, right? at the end of the day, if I feel some type of negative situation, now I'm wired a little bit different from other individuals, so I can only speak from my perspective. I would then go do research on a particular matter before I spoke out on a particular matter, right? Because now we see the repercussions that he's facing, and everybody's turning around and canceling him. So like, I gotta kind of ask him, what position were you trying to take? Were you trying to become an influencer, an informer of some sort? Were you trying to disturb a particular industry and kind of take a position on something? Or were you just outspoken about something based on an emotion that you felt, right? And as a business owner, I feel like you have to keep an even keel about everything. You're a problem solver. You're trying to bring something to a community that may not have been brought before, right? For all of us Muslims, we love the halal option that he offered because we like Cuban food, we like Puerto Rican food. But ultimately, I think it's up to him what he decides that he wants to do. But there could have been a level of grace, empathy, and some level of emotional intelligence that he could have applied in this respective scenario. That's kind of my brief take on it.
Yeah, so we're still talking about phase one. This is where, the time of the murder of George Floyd leading up to the initial posts on Nini's Deli's social media accounts. Adil, do you have anything to add on that end before we move into phase two?
Yeah, well, I definitely agree with what Nabeel is stating, that there's grace, there's a way to be a diplomat and get your message across. But unfortunately, in terms of showing empathy and showing that grace, we have to understand we live in a hypersensitive culture. Anything you say, you can say 1,000 things that people like. For instance, I can make 1,000 motivational videos that everyone can agree with. But the moment I say something like, well, Islam stands for this, and that goes against society, boom, all that stuff's erased. Perfect example, Drew Brees, quarterback. He done a great job his whole career at showing discipline, leadership, character. I mean, this guy's going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback. He makes a comment, well, I don't agree people disrespecting the flag, and now he's like the most hated human being alive. So it's like you say that one thing, you can be empathetic, you can have emotional intelligence, but you make that one slip up, just that one comment, and boom, it's like people forget all that stuff. So it's like with Nini's, is it? Nini's restaurant, I say that correctly?
Nini's Deli.
Nini's Deli, correct? Yeah. They went a little overboard, with the speaker, and then he was actually saying some disrespectful things like, you guys are cowards, you guys are this. That's just, I think we all can agree that he kind of set himself up with that.
We'll definitely get to that. We'll get to that
but
phase.
I'm just saying, but the fact that even if he said that I don't support Black Lives Matter, whatever the case is, he would have still had a backlash. People still would have jumped on him like a bunch of piranhas. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean? So if you don't support Black Lives Matter, that means you support what happened against Floyd, and you support the police department. So they would have kind of they already put themselves in a position, and they can be empathetic, but if they have a position against the norms of society, you can be attacked by society. So they kind of put themselves in a lose-lose situation regardless. Now, they could have minimized the losses, going back to Nabeel's point, by not doing what they did after that. They could have just left it at that and still salvage their business.
Right.
But they decided to go all right, well, you know what? And I take it from their religious stance. Like, you know what? I was telling you about this before, Maheen. They got pumped up. I'm Christian. I'm proud. I have God on my side. I don't care what any of you guys have to say. Now watch what I'm going to do to you. And they just went all out. Yeah. That's what I'm thinking. I think emotions ran high. They got pumped up. They got that Shaheed thing going on in their minds, right? Mm-hmm. They want to go for martyrdom, and that's what they did. And but yeah, they could have approached it better. But I do, like I said, they had a position, and they have the right to have their position.
Going back to so as we move into phase, so then as I recall, people at this point started digging up, stuff on Metro Praise International. This is the church that Juan attends, right? He's a deacon there. But the thing is, that's not the fact that he goes to Metro Praise International isn't news, isn't a new thing. It's very well known. He posts about it on the social media. He's very well known. Every time whenever he gets a deal or something good happens for Nini, he's like, "Thank you, Jesus." He's always praising Jesus. And it's interesting. And I would always wonder, because a lot of Christians, their language is thank God, God bless you. And he's always like, Jesus, thank you, Jesus. You know what I'm saying? Thank you, my Lord. You know what I'm saying? He's very specific about that. And also his church is, I just found out they were in the news like about a month ago because they were violating the governor's orders or something. They were having in-person services of 60 people, like before the curfew, before this stuff was lifted, right? And the governor was like, "Well, in other states, they're letting them do it, so we're just gonna do a passive resistance." But in light of that, nothing came back to Nini's. Like that was in the news, but it wasn't like, "Oh man, hey Juan, what's up with your church?" That was not going down. But now this like little fuse is lit, and now people start looking stuff up. So there's a few posts that start popping up that are screenshots that people start throwing around social media. That's the thing, man. You say something on social media, man. Even if it's you think it's temporary, you delete it. Somebody got a grab of it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like, there's a couple posts I'll highlight. The first post is the position of Metro Praise International on the Black Lives Matter on the movement or organization. That they do not support the organization because, and I think it would probably behoove me to actually, fill out. So as I'm briefing real quick, it looks like on the Blackout Tuesday there was nothing really done, but I don't know if there was much going on there. Let me find out. Okay, here's the statement from Metro the Church. MPI, which is Metro Praise International, will not address racism by aligning with social justice groups that have anti-Christian beliefs and objectives. For example, Black Lives Matter is a group that is known to have socialist leanings and advocates for ungodly causes, including the advancement of LGBT lifestyles. While we agree with the sentiment that Black Lives Matter, we disagree with the movement that bears that slogan and will not endorse in any manner. And they quote two verses from the Bible, Ephesians 5:8-14, 2 Corinthians 6, verses 14 through 16. For those guys who want to I'm not going to go and look those verses up necessarily, so that was the main issue. So that was like, all right, well, this is why Juan isn't endorsing Black Lives Matter, because his church doesn't. And then there's a post that his brother made on Sunday talking about how Christianity, good. Roman Catholicism, evil. Islam, evil. Atheism, evil. Everything else but Christianity, evil. This post was deleted, but in the screen capture, you could see that Juan had made the reaction to it. So people assumed that he liked it. And then I think he was having some discussion underneath in the comments, right? As far as yeah, because I believe the only way is to Jesus, etc. So now you've got not only the BLM people are freaking pissed. You've got people who are like, oh, they're homophobic because their reason for not supporting BLM is because it's pro-LGBT. They're Islamophobic because he says Islam is evil. They're anti-Catholic, except they're anti-everything except themselves. So now it's coming out. Now it's starting to spiral, right? So I at this point in the game, I want to get you guys thoughts. I've got some thoughts on some stuff here that I want to share, but I want to hear you guys out real quick. Based on this is where we're at in the story. This is, I think, going down around Wednesday 30th, Thursday-ish, around that time frame.
So I have a few things that came to my mind. Before I address this, I want to say something. I think whenever there's any African American killing, there's always these sidebar conversations that happen in society, right? One thing that I'm starting to notice a lot now is people are saying, "Oh, go vote. If you didn't vote, then you didn't do this," right? And they never actually address the actual topic about the inhumane injustices that have been done to that community, whether it's the effects of greed of capitalism, even though I'm a fan of that topic, right? To socioeconomic conditions that were pinned against them. They never talk about massacres that have happened from Rosewood, Florida to the massacre of Tulsa, Oklahoma. They never want to talk about the effects of the sugar plantations to the cotton plantations in the Bible Belt, right? And it spirals out of control, and it becomes these topics that we're talking about right now. At the end of the day, I know there's so many people out there that disagree with Islam. They may not like this religion. They may not necessarily like that religion. And if Juan initially did that, then in my opinion, my humble opinion, right, then that is his prerogative, right? But when individuals want to make it about everything else except for the actual subject matter, then it becomes an issue. Especially when you date back and you look at all these cruel things that have happened to this community. Not a single one of those convictions, right? And I could be wrong a little bit on some of these murderous cops, and I'm sure there's good cops out there, right? Freddie Gray from the hometown in Baltimore, those cops weren't convicted. Sandra Bland's cops weren't convicted. I want to know how far this is going to go. So now let's talk about Black Lives Matter for a second, right? I don't know enough about the initiative to say I'm anti them, even if they have certain stances that Maheen that you mentioned. I would support the Black Lives Matter on one principle and one principle alone, that they're actively out there demonstrating, protesting, and informing individuals that might be extremely uninformed about certain subject matters what's going on. Then our critical mind needs to then go do research on our own. But I think it's and this might be my own blanket statement here, right? I think it's a requirement of every single Muslim to actually go stand with every single African American that's out there. Why? Right? If we date back and we look at when the civil rights era happened, right, between the 60s and the 70s, when Malcolm X came up, when Martin Luther King came up, and a few Rosa Parks and all these legendary icons of that movement came up, right? They had an effect on our Muslim community. I think we can all vouch and say everybody between the age block of 28 to 38, right? Growing up in our secluded areas of America, we had some level of identity issues that we faced in the respected high schools, middle schools that we attended, right? Now, we may have gone to our respected masajids, and maybe there was a basketball court there, maybe there were some African-American brothers we befriended and we got cool with and we got to know, right? And I know that was an effect for me growing up. However, I can anonymously say across the board, every single Muslim male between that age of 28 to 38, we read the autobiography of Malcolm X. We read it in its entirety. We understood how it impacted us spiritually and the stance we took and the identity we were able to gain from it. But as I got older, I realized another effect that Malcolm X had and that Martin Luther King had and some of these iconic civil rights heroes had. What was that effect? Because of them taking one for the team, right? And I say that hyperbole, right? Because they took one for the team, our fathers, our Desi uncles, whatever folks were coming up in our respected neighborhood had the ability to crowdfund, bring money together, and raise these multi-million-dollar masajids, right? You know what I'm saying? And we as Muslims, we really owe it to this community. You know what I'm saying? And we really owe a lot to this respected community. So now if Juan wants to take his stance, then I feel like he's owed his stance, right? Because Quran also tells us in Surah Kafirun, the last ayah, Lakum dinakum waliyadin. To you is your religion and to me is mine. But every religion across the board enforces or tells us, encourages us to show love. And if we minimize this and make this a conversation, I know we got on live and said we were going to talk about the situation, but we make it about everything else outside of the injustice, racism that's been systemic in this country, that's been done to that community, then I think it's outrightly unfair. It's not right, and I completely stand against it. So it doesn't really matter what organization is backing it. We need to stand against racism at the end of the day. And I think that's the general sentiment of individuals. And if Juan couldn't necessarily see that, then you know what I would say from a gracious heart is that we just got to pray for him, man. You know what I mean? That's my take on that.
So if we're now, like, see, based upon what you just said, it seemed like from his, again, him still navigating this at this point in time, screenshots are being posted. So now it's like opening up a Pandora's box. He still, I think, then has an opportunity though. If he's still doubling down on like, hey, let's focus on what happened to George Floyd and everybody else killed. Like we can discuss these issues later.
Yes.
Like that's where we need to keep, if he just, because even when, and we'll get to this. So, because throughout this whole instance, it seems like this is sometimes the mistake that you see a lot of religious organizations make. They're like, yeah, the church went on like multiple live streams, like, yeah, we're definitely not down with the killing of George Floyd, but we also don't agree with like LGBTQ, and we don't agree with abortion, and we don't, you know what I'm saying? So now you're like, all right, so I guess what you're saying is, if I understand correctly, and I definitely, this makes a lot of sense too, because this is why people are sensitive right now, right? They're not necessarily sensitive about like abortion right now. They're sensitive because George Floyd was murdered. Yes. And it's just like it's just the latest of like business as usual by police. Yes. Speaking of police, there's a comment in the thread. Adil, are you wearing a Blue Lives Matter t-shirt?
No, just a blue shirt.
Okay. It came in the thread like as Adil.
That's an interesting point, but no, it's just
that's a grunt style t-shirt. Those are kind of dope, bro. You know
okay, they're nice, bro. They fit nice too. They're cozy as hell, bro.
No,
but that's interesting. That I didn't even think about that, but yeah.
No, I'll just post it here so it's recorded. No, it's not a Blue Lives. Mike Slice.
Oh, Mike Slice.
Yeah, he's on. A lot of us are still on. I got 12 people on right now. So
tell Mike he's a troll. Tell him to stop trolling, man.
Hey, Mike, jump on the live stream, dude. I'll send you the link. Let me know if you want to get on. Anyway.
Mike, I'm still waiting for you to call me back.
I know, Mike. Mike, we got some issues with you, actually, bro.
So Adil, is there anything like as these screenshots are being posted now? So now I'm starting to get like, at this point I'm starting to get messages like, "Hey, man, he hates Islam." Like people who know him too. People like so there's people like me who like they're frequent patrons of Nini's. They're Muslim. One shows them love, but they also know where they stand. You know what I'm saying? But they're like, and I was kind of like, so his brother. So let's. He definitely made the mistake. We can agree. I think we can agree. I'm not like I don't really ask Adil on this, but Adil, would you agree with Nabeel that in this phase he still should have been like really focused on the death of George Floyd and the issue of police brutality and how it's affecting, irregardless of his support for police in general, because what comes right after is that he's like, well, I don't support a movement because Jesus tells me to love Black lives. I don't like, you know what I'm saying? So like, would you agree with Nabeel that instead of getting on all that rhetoric, the right thing to do, which is still principled, it's to focus on the issue of the murder of George Floyd and then the other Black lives that have been taken at the hands of law enforcement?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's no argument with that, right? There's that right thing to do to stay principled, to focus on the problem at hand. But at the same time, he has the right to say what he wants to say. And honestly, I don't know the guy. You know him better than I do. I don't think he regrets anything that happened, because the way he was speaking, the way he was standing on it, I feel like this is my position. I want to let people know where I'm at. I think I don't know if it was impetuous or impulsive, but I feel that he was trying to make a point across. I feel that there's something he wanted to share that was balled up for a long time, and now he got a chance to share it. And he understood the consequences, and he's going to deal with the consequences. So I don't even think I think he knew what he was doing. I think he understood that, okay, there's a right way to do this, and there's another way to do this, and I choose the latter. Going to Nabeel's point about people talking about things outside of this issue, which you see a lot, that's something I've noticed too. I call them emotional opportunists. Individuals have these bottled up energy and all these bottled up feelings, and no one's listening to me. I want this, and no one's doing it for years. And now you have a chance to express that. Now you can open up and share the world of everything you're feeling. So no one's focusing on the issue. It's a self-interest thing. Now I can talk about my feelings, what I want. Going back to my first point, this is what happens when you have a hypersensitive culture. People want to be heard. They want their voices to be expressed, and they find these opportunities to do so. Going back to Juan, he knew what he was doing. I feel like he knew what he was doing. He knew the consequences. He made a decision, and he's willing to live with it.
Yeah. Let me ask you guys this: let's say, for example, he says straight up, Islam is evil. He didn't say that. His brother said it. We assume he supports that because he liked the post. Is that a problem for you guys?
No, that's his perspective. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
right.
man, that's his perspective, man. You know, like I recall this is only one thing I'll kind of like relate back to me on this one. I remember sitting down with a respected client and we're about to do a rollover with the guy, and he asked me if I was Muslim, and I thought he would know by my name I'm Muslim, but no. And he said I frankly don't want to do business with you, and I was okay with it, right? Those are principles that he stood on. And going to Adil's point, I could be hypersensitive about it and be like, oh my God, he hates me, he's a Islamophobe. I was just like, okay, you're another line item, bro. Like I didn't, you didn't fall in the numbers game for me, right? That's how I looked at it. And so if somebody says I don't like Muslims, right, I'm not going to get hypersensitive about it, because ultimately my faith has told me that not everybody is going to make it, right? And it is on the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his mercy, on whether we're even going to make it. So I look at it like, okay, maybe this person was affected by a Muslim in a wrong way. Maybe he misunderstood something from a Muslim in a wrong way. There was some form of misrepresentation from a Muslim, right? And what can I do internally and externally that maybe I can be a little bit more upright, so when the next person that sees me, instead of going off of this emotional reaction that this person and this bias that a person has, which they have every right to think that way, now I've put a little bit more positive impact on Muslims. I'll leave a brother anonymous. So I remember speaking to this one brother years ago, and I asked him, hey, bro, what brought you to Islam? And in fact, he was just like, it was all the Muslims dudes that he knew that weren't necessarily practicing in the appropriate way that had an impact on him. So the way I look at that is like, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to guide who he wants to guide, and ultimately he's not going to guide whoever he wants to guide. And that's my faith system, and that's what I believe, right? And I stand by that. And ultimately he's standing by a position that he wants to take. And as long as you're confident about your specific position and you're not violating any human rights, or you're not violating anybody's social rights, then you have every right to think what they believe, right? I mean, I'm anti certain things that are happening on in the world, right? I'm pro Palestine. I'm anti what's happening in China, but ultimately that's what I believe. And if somebody feels the other way, then they have every right to feel the way that they feel.
Adil, what's your take on that? When you hear like someone says Islam, like let's say that's what Juan is actually saying, Islam is evil. Let's just push it to as far as we can.
Look, let's be honest, man. We gotta know what country we live in. We gotta know the society we're in. What he said, honestly, is the majority of what non-Muslims think about us, right? They don't think highly of Islam, all right? Even if they like you as a person, they just like you as an individual. They don't like your religion. And that's the majority of the people in this country. We need to be okay with that. Because if you go out and get offended by everyone saying Islam is wrong, then you're just gonna get your feelings hurt all day. Because majority, I think there's statistics on this too, correct me if I'm wrong, that the most hated people in the world in this country are Muslims. They did surveys on this, and I mean it is what it is. What are you gonna do about it? You can get worked up about it. You can get all sensitive about it. You can start crying about it, or you can represent this religion, be an ambassador to this religion, and try to show people what Islam is through your actions. Right? That's the only approach, and you do that through positivity. You do that being productive. You do that by implementing solutions and taking leadership roles. Right? So him saying that Islam is evil, well, guess what? Every organization that you did any type of business with, any company you did business with, I guarantee you there's someone in that executive, in that chair, that is Islamophobic. At least one person that's being generous.
Yeah. I was going to say that, like, the way I took at it was this. It didn't bother me. It really didn't bother me at all. Because, like I said, like, I've been on good terms. Like, because when I engage with a person in real life, that becomes my paradigm. That's
sure.
like, that's so. For example, if I see like let's say Adil just says something on Bearded Bros that's crazy and it goes viral, he's getting canceled, right? And I'm like, yo, I've known Adil for like what 8 years. You know what I'm saying? Like, let me talk to Adil. Let me find out what's going. Like, and I'm pretty sure this is like some kind of there's either a misunderstanding, there's a something's going on, right? As far as Islam being evil, if you think about Christianity, okay, Islam being evil is a natural conclusion if you are going to like push the Christian conclusion to its natural progression, right? Just think about this, right? Think about this. As far as I understand, that most Christians that I've spoken to, the proto-Orthodox view is that they do believe in their own, like, they believe that they are going, if they're saved, they believe they're going to heaven. They will say it. They're not like where Muslims would say that, like, we don't know, just because you convert doesn't, I'm not guaranteeing you a spot in heaven. We believe that Islam is the path there. And then if you die upon true faith, you'll eventually get to heaven, but you may have to suffer for whatever wrongdoings you may have done. But you don't even know if you died on true faith, right? So, and this is an angle that many Christian missionaries will use. Like, what kind of religion is it that you don't really know, right? So Christians would say that they know that they're going to heaven, okay? So they have this faith that's based upon the cross. That Jesus died on this cross for the sins of humanity, and for you to be saved, you must accept that, right? You must accept him as your Lord and Savior. And if you don't, you're going to hell. So if you think about it, what's a concise way of saying all of that, like another path that's going to lead you to hell? It's evil, right? So I'm like, okay, one is not shy about his Christianity. I know where he stands. I would just assume, listen, like anyone who has a strong belief system, it's gonna cause opposite belief. It's gonna like reject opposite belief systems, and the semantics, is what it is. Some people are upset by semantics, and I get it. And this comes into a issue of tone.
So real quick, Maheen, the evil wasn't a means of I hate you. The evil is means of this is my theology. This is what I believe.
That's exactly. And when he would comment in the thread, he would talk about, listen, I believe the only way to salvation is through Jesus, and everything else is evil because everything else won't lead you to salvation.
Yeah.
It's going to lead to eternal damnation.
Yeah.
So what else would you say? Like, to me, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, okay. Some guys were like, well, it's a little harsh. I'm like, I mean, okay, but it's still fact. You know what I'm saying? Like it shouldn't
see, the
surprise
advantage you have is that you understand your theology. That's where, because I wouldn't think that. Like, the fact that you said it made sense. Like, he's not that he's picking on you, he hates you. He's just saying, like, this is my fiqh. This is their rulings. This is their theology, and you know it because you've been around it. But I think the layman like myself, when we hear it, we're gonna think the latter. Like, yeah, he just hates us, and it's more of a hate comment than a theological comment.
In fact, I've told Christians themselves sometimes that, like, listen, if you believe I'm going to hell, I actually respect that because that's part of your theology. That's what I understand your theology to be. Not like, don't tell me something I want to hear for kumbaya.
For sure.
And not be honest to your own faith, right? If you want to be flimsy on your faith, then listen, you could sign up for Team Islam. We can get this done right now. 30 seconds, shahada, you're in. You know what I'm saying? But like, if you're not, then listen, so I didn't have a problem with that at all, to be honest. I'm like, it didn't really bug me. It was like, I mean, there's an initial like, when you see something like that, it kind of like, a little bit of like like you come and punch somebody in the shoulder kind of thing, but it's like, I get it. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
it's annoying, but you can shake it off. It's
not a big deal. You know what I'm saying? It's not like it doesn't really bother me. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of my take. That was my take on it. That got spun into being Islamophobic.
Real quick though, Maheen, you said something with your phone that actually made me think. The fact that people can say these things and we can just see it and just kind of like, again, just shrug it off, that in itself is a skill set. Right? Mm-hmm. You made that comment. I'm like, man, that might be true. The fact that someone can say something and it doesn't bother you and you can just look away from it and you have that thick skin, like, subhanAllah, like, that is something, that's a strength that you have, that we have, that might, and that's where the confusion is. Like, why would someone be offended by that? But maybe that's because we're underestimating that we have a certain skill set and strength to look past these things. And unfortunately, some people don't have that. I just want to throw that out there.
I mean, I want to piggyback on what. No, go ahead, bro.
No, I go ahead. I'm good.
I want to piggyback on what both of you are saying, right? The way you were able to critically analyze that goes to show the level of emotional intelligence that you had, and not being hypersensitive to what Adil was saying, and say, hey, let me really understand where this individual is coming from, right? So even if they may not necessarily believe what I believe, at least I understand his perspective. So when you get a chance to dive a little bit deeper in understanding somebody's perspective, you're actively listening to them. You're not just listening to frickin' respond. And there's to Adil's point, this hypersensitive culture, oh look, bro, he just said something Islamophobic. Let's go be social justice warriors and type up a freaking article on Facebook. You know what I'm saying? And now you're just like attacking without just kind of falling back and like kind of understanding where the person is coming from, right? That in itself is a form of like dawah too, right? Like, what if the person really kind of meant what he meant, right? And you delve down, you double down, and you understood where he was coming from, like Maheen just did. Maybe at that moment, it left some type of impression on him that grows like a seed later on down the line. And this person says, hey, 10 years from now, 12 years from now, they become Muslims, say, hey, I said some inflammatory things at one point because I believed what I believe wholeheartedly. That's what my theology at the time told me. But this person didn't have an adverse reaction to me. This person that I was talking to wasn't overly aggressive towards me, right? And he was able to kind of meet me where I'm at. And you know what? Because of that left an impact on me. I'm just saying. You know what I mean? Like, let people be where they're at the end of the day. And if they believe it, cool, bro. Like, that's in itself, that's what makes humanity like beautiful to me. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. That's my perspective on it.
All right. I want to move forward with what transpires next. So
wait, how the comments looking? I'm curious.
Nothing really. Like Mike is telling me.
Besides Mike Swice trolling me, what else was going on over there?
Mike is just like, Omar Muzaffar and Imam Ibrahim are on here. You should bring them on for thoughts or comments. I'm like, absolutely. If they want to come on, just comment here and I will send out the link. So definitely I'll they can jump on the Zoom. These are people whose voices we value. Anyways, so now we're moving along later in the week. So Wednesday night when I saw the Islam is Evil post, I actually texted Juan and I said like, hey man, hey, like don't it's like more like don't worry, we're good. I get what you're saying and I see where you're coming from on some of these things. Like just you just keep doing you, right? It hadn't gone out of control yet. This is where I think we started to, and then we talked again on Thursday evening. Sorry. Yeah, I sent him an initial text on Wednesday. He didn't reply. He got back to me on Thursday afternoon, evening. We talked a little bit on Thursday. And then he's like, hey, Maheen, I'm going to jump on a live stream. Go check it out. So his church does a live stream. And and they're explaining some of the issues. They're like, this is what we feel like Nini's is being dragged through the mud, etc. And we don't, and Juan again doubled that. Is like, listen, I don't believe in black. I believe in the movement. I believe that Jesus created all men in their image, and that includes black men. And the way it's being portrayed, the recipient is hearing all lives matter, which is essentially being portrayed as, which is considered as a rejection of Black Lives Matter. Which is an upholding of the status quo, which is everyone is not happy with right now. And this goes back to everyone. I think Nabeel was saying is understanding the audience and like understanding that what you say, you could say, I believe all black men are honored because they're all like created in God's image. And the listener is like, well, first of all, I don't believe in whatever you believe. So whatever, go to hell with that. And you're not talking about the issue again of black people being persecuted. So go to freaking hell. That's how the listener is perceiving that. And this was going on back and forth. And this is when even I was on the comments, his pastor spoke for the most part. Juan spoke for a brief amount of time. And I see the comments and people were like, listen, Juan made his points, but the pastor is making it worse. All right. So that's when it starts. This is where involving the church really like put the freaking nail in the coffin. Then we go on a Friday morning. And then that's when people saw like the crazy stuff. This is when, you know, some of the stuff that came out of that was like headline material. That's when you got the Black Lives Matter kills more people than the KKK. You know what I'm saying? I was like, because I remember when I briefed some of you guys on, I remember I was talking to Nabeel offline. I was like briefing him a little bit about it. And then Nabeel, you went and did your own research. You called me back. I was like, "Hey, man, what the hell are they saying?"
Who says that, bro? Like, there's nothing in theology that I can break down to even give him a benefit of the doubt on a statement like that. And you know, it goes back to what I'm initially saying. Like if you're a business owner, you hold some level of like social responsibility, bro. You know what I'm saying? And you can't just come off top and say something crazy like that, because those are not facts. Those are your true emotions speaking. You know what I mean? But I want to say something, even like you guys got my whole like brain spinning on this topic.
I actually, but like I'll explain what he mentioned, what he meant by it, because I was on the live stream for a good hour, right?
Okay.
So again, this is one of those things where by his paradigm and by his facts, he might be making a true statement, but again, it's not coming across. So he's basically, because BLM, one of the issues that Metro Praise International, the church, has with the Black Lives Matter movement is their pro-choice position, right? And so the position then, the pro-choice, the rhetoric is that when you're having an abortion, you're killing an actual human being. You're killing a baby. So therefore, if I recall, his statement was because BLM is pro-choice, they have more deaths on their hands because of their alignment with groups like Planned Parenthood than the Ku Klux Klan.
You know, even breaking it down like that, I don't know if that was a socially responsible thing to say.
It definitely wasn't responsible. You can't even like say that, because it's like you have to know when people are ready to hear that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And when go ahead.
Like I don't even want to hear that, right? And like I'm not even black. But the thing about it is to say something like that, like you're basically disregarding all historical events that have happened by one organization, right? That has wreaked havoc in parts of the South, in other areas during the civil rights movement, where it's well documented the turmoil that they brought to the Black community, right? Mm-hmm. And so to me, that just shows a level of like intelligent ignorance, if that even makes sense. You're intelligent on the stance that you're taking, but there's a level of ignorance to it too, because you're not going back and researching history and the effect of history. I mean, even like this whole case of like abortions, right? These rights might be like recent, 20, 30 years, but to minimize the effect that one organization has had on a race of people, it's inhumane, unjust, and outright ignorant to me. And when I saw that, like, I couldn't process that any other way. And I was asking myself, am I being overly sensitive? Am I reacting too hard? No, but like, I don't think I am, right? And there's always been, and so I had an offline conversation with somebody else, and I think one of the reasons that I am passionate about this subject matter and that we should stand with our Black brothers and sisters in this moment and any other moments that have happened in history. The judicial system, right, has always been anti-Black folks. Like, so, okay, for example, when I asked somebody this question, I said, when that shooting in North Carolina happened, Dylan Roof or whatever that crazy kid's name was,
Dylan Roof,
he lit that church up, bro. He lit it up. He was escorted like some random drunk dude coming out of, like, you know, Sky Bar or something. Like, bro, it's all good. You know what I mean? You paid for a couple of bottles. Let's just walk you to the freaking SUV over here and we'll drive you off. Here's some McDonald's on the way too to like help you recover from your hangover. You know what I'm saying? Whereas though, like, what just happened to this brother in Minneapolis? And for a alleged Ford check, I was reading the autopsy reports, right? I can't even pronounce some of the medical stuff that they mentioned about his autonomy. His physiology and stuff like that was affected. I'm sitting here like, dang, bro, like, subhanallah. And now they're getting second-degree murder charges, and it's not more than that. And I don't think, I just don't think it was right, bro. Allahu Akbar, we could spin everything else previously spoken about differently, but this, he has to assume some level of responsibility on that matter.
Yeah, and I think this was the again, the nail in the coffin. So they now, the church has now like more or less repented from these, like how they handled, because it's Adil, before I get into it, do you have any thoughts on how, like, cause you saw some stuff about his brother was out there preaching outside his restaurant. Yeah.
So, I mean, it goes back to like, you always want to find the root to everything.
Yeah.
And there's a psychological root to this. And Nabeel said it, emotion. When I was listening to him, I wasn't more so listening to what he was saying. I was trying to figure out, like, why are you saying that? And there's a lot of anger and frustration and just resentment. He was mad. He was an angry human being. And then you think about it, it all started with him and his religion, right? And this country's anti-religion. If you bring religion to anything, people are going to attack you, whether you're Muslim, Christian, whatever the case is. The moment you bring, well, God tells me to do this, you're going to have a whole swarm of piranhas come at you. Like, what are you talking about? Yada, yada, yada. So what I'm thinking, you could probably find out, Maheen, I'm thinking when he brought out religion regarding his stance, even though it might have been nonchalant at this point, nothing too heavy. But once he brought his religion to this position, I don't support this group because of X, Y, and Z, because of my religion. Something tells me, knowing the way society is and their attitude towards religion, that someone said something derogatory to his religion. Well, your religion is this, God is that, and totally disrespectful. And it triggered him, like, okay, you want to talk about my religion? You want to talk about my beliefs? You want to talk about my principles? Well, let me teach you about your principles. Let me give you some facts. And so to me, it was like him getting attacked. I'm not saying what he did was right, by the way. Let me just make sure I keep that clear. I'm not justifying it, but I'm just saying from a psychological standpoint, he was attacked and someone verbally attacked him. So now he's like, you know what? I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you now. So he verbally attacks the audience with these kind of comments. Again, all emotion, not too much thought to it or thinking about the repercussions of what can happen. Not sure he regrets it, to be honest with you. I think he just feels like I represented my religion, I represented my beliefs, and I'm proud of it.
Yeah,
I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, for sure. So like, and as we wrap up Friday, what happens is that there's a protest that after, like, I don't think it seemed to me like, as I was following like various people's social media accounts who were like really like, following the story. And then I think the preaching on Friday morning, because I think, so what happened on Thursday night was that like the pastor was like, listen, what do you guys want? Do you guys want, because most people on the live stream were not members of the church on the church's live stream. They were like people who like knew Nini's Deli. They knew about Chicago Native, which is one streetwear brand that a lot of us have clothing from. They were people who knew Juan, right? So therefore they were like, just, they're pissed off. So the pastor was like, what do you guys want us to do? Like, do you guys want us to like, he's like, listen, I'm willing to donate $2,500 worth of food from Nini's Deli. Juan, will you match it? And Juan's like, absolutely. So $5,000. So like, now where do you want it to go? Right. And so they were like talking openly on this thing, like, hey, do we want to like make it on the house for everybody starting tomorrow up to the 5K? You know what I'm saying? Like, do you want to do that? And so that discussion was being had like kind of openly on Thursday night. They didn't go through with that. I think Friday, what happened by Friday was like he had a limited menu. And then I think he had to close up shop because with the preaching led to a protest at 1 p.m. Now, I know some guys that went to the protest. I'm probably going to do another live stream. I might do another live stream with them to get their take on things. And so, and then what I saw, it was sad, man. Like I saw that they were walking him out. Like he had to be escorted by the cops from the store to his car, and people like screenshotting his license plate. This is someone that like I've got to, because like regardless of what he says, it's when you have a good relationship with somebody and they've always treated you well, and you see like people throw, it looked like he had like liquid on his back, like people were like throwing drinks and stuff. As he was walking, he didn't like really respond to anything. He kind of like put his head down, just like walked, right? He wasn't engaging much conversation. It was just a sad sight to see, right? It was sad on so many levels because most of these people who were there were probably people who loved Nini's Deli, who loved Juan, and now they were just like pissed. Anyways, long story short is this morning as we, while this is happening, this is when it gets like, then this is not going to end well because all the partnerships are dropping off. And these are big name people like Molly's Cupcakes. They're very well known in Chicago, right? Bang Bang Pies, another popular, they supply the pies and the cupcakes respectively for Nini's. Intelligentsia Coffee, like, right? Round two of, this boutique chain of vintage thrift stores that did a collaboration with just as recently as like 2 weeks ago. I mean, they're just like 8 or 9 institutions in Chicago. Even Nike did a collaboration with Nini's. They made a Nini's Air Force One, right?
Wow.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that's how like much Nini's was so respected. And Juan was so respected in the greater community. And it like, it was just sad just like to see this just go down the drain, right? And at this point I was like, I think they'd come back on Friday night to board the building up to prevent like any kind of vandalism, like broken glass and stuff. And then I was like, I just don't see him coming back. I just don't see this I think this is the last day. I thought it's last night. And so this morning I jumped on a live stream the church had with it. I saw Juan was on it. I was alerted to it. I jumped on and he confirmed what I thought was going to happen. He said that like, I'm walking away from Nini's. Because I also realized that most of his staff had left, right? Because his staff had left, they didn't agree with his views, and they started jumping ship this week, right? And so there's campaigns out there for like, by the way, if anyone's hearing, in the restaurant industry, they happen to hear this in Chicago, we can maybe like you can just DM me and we can get you in touch with those guys if as they're looking for work because this happened really suddenly, right? And I was like, he's not going to run this shop by himself. It doesn't make any sense. And on top of that, there's no more. The PR is dead. Like he is going to get crucified, no pun intended, right? If he were to even think about opening that thing back up. So he confirms it this morning. He goes on the live stream. Is like, yeah, I gotta go. I'm gonna be looking for work, and I'm gonna pursue full-time ministry. And basically, there's no more Nini's. And like when you think about how fast this happened, and that's the amazing thing to me, man. Like, yes, there are certain things that they brought upon themselves, without a doubt, right? And there are some things that we can get into relating to that. But I want to take a moment and issue some things I had a problem with. As this stuff was starting to like go bad, you had a lot of people coming out and like sharing screenshots and telling stories of the past, of old Juan. Oh, Juan harassed me. I went on a date with Juan. It didn't go well. They're showing screenshots. They're saying this. Oh, he doesn't actually serve halal meat. That's all fake news, right? And my reaction whenever I see this, when there's like a pile on, I'm like, listen, as of last Saturday, y'all were good. Last Saturday was his top business day in 2020. Why y'all coming out with old stuff now? This seems just like petty. You know what I'm saying? Like that was my reaction to that. I was like, because even my friends were sending me that stuff. I'm like, yo, why you got like, you know what I'm saying? Like is now the question is, as we react, how ethical are we being? There are calls now openly that Jose, his brother, who works for the Illinois Department of Juvenile, I think, and they're trying to get him fired. They were like, a person with homophobic and Islamophobic views should not be working with children, right? You know, in this country, we have the avenue to pursue those kind of means right now. But I mean, and I'm not sure how I feel about like Jose, for example, but like the thing I do know I have a problem with is like people bringing old stuff up. If it was known, why is it now an issue? Why wasn't it an issue last week?
Because they're being opportunists, bro. To what Adil said earlier, they want to be opportunistic. If the shop's already burning down,
Yeah.
and again, instead of addressing what initially burned the shop down, right, and talking about that race subject, they're bringing everything else and throwing more dirt on this individual's thing. You know, it's because naturally I love it and I hate it all at the same time too, right? Like I absolutely hate the new wave of technology, social media, all of that, right? Here's why: because when we were younger, none of this existed. It would be he said, she said, or you settled it, you know what I mean, the way
Parking
you
lot.
would want to settle it, and kind of have a quick little brawl, right? Wherever you're from, and you settled it, there goes your differences, and you move on. Um, Adil mentioned all this hypersensitivity that individuals have developed, and I think a lot of that comes with lack of conversations and data being thrown at you 24/7, 24/7. So you don't know how to handle stuff anymore from an emotional perspective. And now that you don't know how to handle things and everybody else is throwing dirt on this dude's name, and I'm not justifying it, I think certain things he reaped what he sowed at this moment, right? Then now they're like, oh, let's just pile it all on and let's go on a full force attack. And it is very petty. I didn't even know half of that stuff was going on. And I think social media is to blame. I think technology is to blame. And I think a lot of individuals need to kind of look at themselves like, yo, you're pointing a finger, but there's like 4 fingers pointing back at you. And so what can you respectfully change, right? And ultimately, what are you doing and in standing in solidarity on this subject matter of systemic racism, right? And hatred that's embedded in individuals' minds and hearts, and what can you do by yourself to help the cause and not necessarily add to the harm that's out there. That's kind of my personal take on it. You know what I mean? Because we all got skeletons in our closet, man, right?
Right.
And at the end of the day, I think that's between, and I think this is probably the one beautiful thing about Islam. It ultimately, you got to repent, you seek for forgiveness, and it's between you and Allah at the end of the day, right? And nobody else is there to judge at the end of the day, and it is what it is. And I think some of that is very childish, and it just needs to stop more than even this cancel culture, right? That's my personal take on it.
Adil, you got anything to add on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go back to the psychological aspect of this. You think about a bully. Why does a bully do what they do? Right? They're going through some issues. They're going through some darkness. They're going through some problems in their life. So they like to bully people to kind of, I guess, minimize some of that negativity in their minds and hearts. Now, going back to cancel culture, that's what cancel culture is. It's legitimizing, it's justifying being a bully. Let's look at the situation with Nini's right now. They went out of business, right? I mean, if you're against them, that's a victory. That's a win, right? You walk off, you're good to go. But no, that wasn't enough. People wanted to bury him. People wanted to kick him while he's on the ground, like spitting up blood. Let's keep beating him down. Let's keep beating him down. Now, there's something going on with that individual. If you feel you have to continue to beat someone down when they already lost, there's something within yourself you need to assess. There's some darkness within yourself that's going on right now because you don't want to accept that darkness. That's why you're acting in this way, to kind of delude yourself, to deny that the situation's going on within yourself. So let me release this negativity on him so I don't think about the negativity that's stirring up within myself.
Right. That's I didn't think about that. I didn't think that deeply about it.
Beautiful,
I think about it from
bro.
a purely like ethical, like if we're all Muslims here, is that how we would? And to be honest, and so this morning, the church themselves was very like, I felt they were sincere in like they realized they screwed up, and I do believe, as we're doing an autopsy here, as that this church was responsible at the end of the day. more so than what. Like, I think that what happened, because if you look at like if you look at the Christian, like the practicing Christian's life structure with his in his relationship with his church, it's different, and his pastor, it's different than Muslims for the most part. Most Muslims we're decentralized, right? We don't necessarily, like we were talking offline about, you might go to the mosque in your neighborhood, but you can go to any mosque. You might be more involved with a mosque that's like an hour across town, depending on what the programming they have, right? And if their programming cuts out for a year because they have a different imam and you got another, something else popping up somewhere else, you just go to that. In Chicago, that's how the feel of Chicago is. You don't have to like, so if, for example, if some like imam gets busted for like spiritual abuse, I'm like, all right, cool, I'll just go somewhere else, right? Well, and he was part of my rotation, right? I'll just drop him off and go somewhere else. What I found, at least my experience with Christians, and you guys can chime in as well, is that they definitely have, like, they got their one church and that's where they go. And that church has a pastor and the people in charge there, their board, the deacons, whatever, that's who they are connected with, right? And this church, for better or worse, had these views, right? And Juan also got his entire worldview from this church. Not only theology, but how he's going to like navigate his theology through politics, which is fair. But when you only have one source and that source doesn't like teach you how to like navigate things properly, you're set up for failure. Muslims, as people become more and more learned in Islam, they might focus in on like one teacher or a small group of teachers, right? But I don't feel like you're bound, unless you're on the path of like spirituality or like Sufism or Tasawwuf, whatever you want to call it, that you're bound to a teacher. And even then you might be taking like other subjects from someone else, right? So I don't feel that like, that's one way I think Muslims may be protected in this sense, because you're not like, individual Muslims, they might, because we do have like cult-like figures and cult-like movements within Islam, but it's not like built within the structure of Christianity. It seems like, at least in the United States, that's certainly something that I've noticed. That's my observation, is that like people are going to align with their church and then the pastor of that church. And that's going to be and that's where they're going to get their religious worldview from. And they're not going to really explore others. And I get the same time, there's a lot of wisdom in that, because, you have so many denominations. At the end of the day, you're just trying to build a connection with God, and you don't want to confuse yourself with a bunch of different opinions. You just want to get one, right? But this is where sometimes it can be really detrimental.
Yeah, well, that goes back to like the natural state of human beings. We like to be in what we're comfortable with, what we know, right? So naturally, that's where you see a lot of bubbles. You see within our Muslim community too. People like to be in this paradigm, this certain bubble, and anything outside of that is change. Anything outside of that is risk. And a natural human instinct is to protect myself from risk. So going back to your point, why does he do that? Why is he in this kind of bubble? This is his comfort zone. This is what he feels familiar with. And that familiarity is part of his identity. So it's not even just I'm part of this church. This is who I am. This is my identity. This is everything to me. And anything outside of that is not only different, but potentially wrong. And that's when you get to more of the extreme side of being that one-dimensional binary, having that binary mindset.
And I want to take this opportunity to actually step into Juan's shoes really quick, because Juan he talked to this morning about like how he became a Christian, right? And when you think, and you put yourself in these shoes, and you think about how this religion or this belief, how it's impacted you, it would make sense to at least understand why he's so bought in, right? Because he talks about, as a kid growing up, he was arrested 5 times. He used to steal things. He used to break into cars. He used to do drugs, alcohol, cocaine. He used to sleep around. When he got bored with just natural heterosexual sex, he's very open. He started sleeping with guys. Like, so he was bisexual. So he just experimented with stuff, right? And he just kept trying out anything worldly desire, any worldly desire he could push. He was just going after it, because every worldly desire eventually has a drop dead something an end to it, right? You know, you're gonna get it, and then you're gonna be like, oh, what's next? What's next? What's next? Right? And he didn't explain like the dynamics of how it happened, but he more or less found the religion of Christianity. You know, became a follower of the religion of Christianity. Committed his life to as the Christian, as you know, as Christian, to the path of Jesus, to like believing in Jesus, and he saw his own life change. And at the same time, this is something he would tell me about. I would ask him questions about like, how did you come up with like this idea for Nini's? And he would be reflecting. He's like, the Lord came to me, right? He certainly like connected his business success with his belief in Jesus, okay? And so I think he felt like, and where did he really probably get his understanding from Jesus is like, you know, I would have to assume, I don't know this for a fact, so if I'm off on this, I'd have to like go back and correct it. But listen, again, from his church, from his pastor, that's where he got it from. You know, and that's why he probably felt like, hey, Jesus got me this success. I'm going to double down on what got me here. And then it actually just crumbles, right? That's kind of what I was like, you know, as you know, the saying goes, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh. But it's, if you think about the Muslim paradigm, the point of view, we believe Allah decrees our, you know, is predestined our sustenance, right? You know, if you believe in a God, a higher power, it's natural to believe that he is in ultimate power, right? So it's not a ridiculous conclusion. You know, but I feel like if, you know, the situation was different, if he had like a church that was a little bit more savvy, so to speak, and how to navigate this. You know, for example, I want to give a shout out to like Jarrett Stevens at Soul City Church. He's a pastor there that I follow. I've been to that church. People know that I've experienced. I know he's been on the front lines of protests and Black Lives Matter, etc. Right? But I know he shares maybe some of the same sentiments about some of the issues, the controversial issues of BLM, but again, savvy enough to understand that right now the focus should be on the death of this person, George Floyd, right? And I think if, you know, Juan was in a situation with a church that had a little bit more savviness to it, and was able to navigate it, he could essentially have the same values, the same belief systems. It wouldn't have ended the way it did. Like, it's a sad thing. I'm gonna be selfish and tell you that I'm sad that I've eaten my last kitchen sink, or my last empanada, or my last cafe con leche. And I was like thinking, man, I wish I had some money, because I would go hire his entire team right now and start that puppy up, because I love that food. You know?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that was kind of like my
actually, now that you made that point from the business aspect, he's better off trying to sell that business to somebody else. I mean, and then like let it know public that it's new ownership and Nini's, and I think everybody will probably benefit from that. Or maybe I'm being naive, I don't know, but I think, like you said, that
there needs to be space for that. There needs to be space.
I mean, there'll be time for that. It won't be tomorrow, but to keep that business going, for him not to like totally be in whatever debt, and the public. I mean, from what you said, I've never been there, but it seems like it was an important asset to the community. I think if he was just like, I'm going to sell it to this company, this individual, and this is like, hey, like, guys, I'm buying this now. This is who I am. This is what it is. I think it can really turn around, and I think more people can benefit from that.
Yeah. So that's kind of what my like more or less assessment of the as far as the autopsy goes. Man, just like I'm sad. I'm more sad than anything else, right? You know, and I think moving forward is like there is like, you know, and the way he sees it, if he's saying that, like, again, I think the summary of a lot of this is that when you're talking to a clientele that is not God-centric, right? And then when you're using this kind of language, you got to understand that even today, you know, people was like, because he believes that, okay, Nini's was blessed. Nini's didn't get canceled. He says Nini's was blessed, right? And what else is he going to say right now? What else is he? If he's a believing man, that's the right thing to say.
Right. I agree with that.
Right? Regardless of what happened. You know what I'm saying? Like, Islam, we have the concept of tying your camel, like, right, of like you pursue your worldly means, you cover your butt, so to speak, and then you
Trust
also
in
rely
God.
on God,
Yep.
right? I felt like these guys did not tie the camel here. I don't know if that
They
concept,
just blindly trusted, but they didn't do the first part.
you know,
Yeah.
and this is something that I definitely want to get some like some people of the Christian background to explore this topic on. If anyone who's listening can connect me with anybody who's willing to come on. I have I am in touch right now with Juan's pastor at Metro Praise. Right now they are like, I think just they have like deleted all their social media, both the church and Nini's Deli. They do feel they're actually, I think, legitimately scared now. But I think there's an opportunity for me. Like, not everyone's gonna do this.
But no
I
one's
will
apologized, though. No one's publicly
Yeah.
apologized.
Well, the church apologized for how they went about it.
Is
That's
that
a start.
To
Right.
me, like, why they shouldn't apologize? Like you said, like, to say they can't. It wouldn't be fruitful for them to come. You know, the church should not say we now agree with Black Lives Matter, because everyone knows, like, no, well, you just disagreed with them. That's not
Right.
what they're saying. They're saying that, like, this is what Juan said, and I'll say this. He's like, I should have been clear on this, and maybe he still doesn't get it. He's like, listen, on the issues that of Black Lives Matter that are parallel to, he's like, I'm against all injustice, and there are elements of Black Lives Matter that you know, are for combating injustice, and for like combating oppression, and for combating the killing of Black people by police officers. I am for that. That is something I'm committed to working with. You know, that is a part of the movement. The other parts of the movement that are against my faith, that part I'm not going to be congruent on.
See,
Right?
you know, if I'm analyzing Juan correctly here, it's he's really triggered and driven by some emotional factor. And now that you said that he went through all these trials and tribulations and some of these experimental factors,
Yeah.
to Adil's point, it is going to have a psychological effect on you, right?
Mhm.
And even him saying what he's saying right now, the statement that you just said that he iterated, it sounds like he's still trying to defend it, right? And I think the appropriate matter for him to say, and I had no idea that he had backing from all these like great collaborations and stuff, right? So I'll say this. I'll say two things. He should have been very careful on how he positioned his words, right? Hey, I'm a very faith-centric individual, and my success and what I believe in came through my faith. Da 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 da. My faith has taught me X, Y, and Z. I don't necessarily believe in. However, the murder of George Floyd is extremely important to Nini's Deli, and here's why. Da 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 da. Right? Instead of coming out and making that one inflammatory comment that's still resonating in my head and my heart, which I'm just like, wow, what's going on? Why
the
am I?
BLM KKK statement?
Yeah, bro. Like that's
But
just
that was his brother, but like, again, he's responsible for that because he gave his brother the platform.
So,
Right.
so it makes me think about so I was examining The Last Dance, right? The documentary about the Bulls and stuff.
Yeah.
And it made me really kind of think about who Michael Jordan is and where even though I'm a hater, where LeBron James is right now, right? They're both icons in their kind. And if you see Jordan in his heyday, he would always protect his brand. And he would be very careful on who he did interviews with. He only did interviews with Ahmad Rashad majority of the time, right? And he was very careful on what was coming out of his mouth, and he was very focused on his respected craft, right? And so if Nini's Deli was his craft, then Juan should have kind of stayed in that lane, and maybe the religious piece could have just been an add-on to what he was doing, but his verbiage is something I'm not going to blame on the church. That verbiage is something that was there, and maybe the church just had a way to help him kind of refine. But you can never take away something that somebody's feeling already psychologically. You see what I'm saying? And that's in which the religion kind of help him find himself, right? He's always going to be bounded to that. But I just don't think he was responsible, and there needs to be a level of accountability there, right? On what could have been done better moving forward. You know what I'm saying?
Do you guys feel that so one of the like because Juan wore his Christianity on his sleeve, a cursory understanding Christianity would tell you that Christianity has certain views on LGBTQ, abortion, etc. I think he's at least like, to me, I feel like, I don't know if we really touched on this yet, is that he I don't see why people are surprised. We talked about the Islam point of view, like his position on Islam, like what's natural, but like, you know, Christianity, when you say you're Christian, you can assume certain beliefs as sub beliefs, right? I don't understand why some people are surprised now, and they're coming at him as like, they're saying you're a homophobe, you're this, you're that. What are your thoughts on that?
They're hypersensitive. They're just being hypersensitive about it, without really delving into why he's thinking the way that he was thinking.
And I think this is an important point here that I've seen, is that because they're like, well, I'm a Christian and I don't believe that. And I'm like, well, listen, now you're pretty much like, okay, listen, there's what you believe in and what your doctrine teaches, right? I do believe Juan is trying to be honest to his theology, to his doctrine. And a lot of, you know, so, you know, so I think that's where, you know, being clear, and this is a lesson for us as Muslims to like understand, and our lessons for our teachers is like, yeah, we got to meet people where they're at. When we're educating people, we meet them where they're at, but we also need to like always keep them learning and growing and making sure they're clear on our positions.
Yep.
You know, I was talking to somebody offline the other day about I was talking to Adil the other day. We had a conversation as an example, like the show Rami, right? And so I enjoyed Rami, but Rami's Imam, the Sheikh, is played by a guy named Mahershala Ali, a very talented actor, but he's a Qadiani persuasion, right? And from the Orthodox Sunni point of view, they're not Muslim, period. Like, they're not like, it's not like you say the group is not Muslim, but individuals might be Muslim. No, their foundation is like, if you belong to this group, you're not Muslim. You're something else, but you're not Muslim. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Because you just don't do, like, extra profits don't work for us, right? You know, you just can't like double. So
there's no bench. There's no profits on the bench, man. We got our starting lineup and we're good. Alhamdulillah, man.
Yeah,
we're fixed.
Yeah, 6 men or so. You know, so I was having this conversation with somebody, and I was just like,
"Ain't no Steve Kerrs, bro. We're good, man. We got our starting five."
Well, I was having this conversation with somebody, and they were like, "Well, he's still Muslim, just not according to what you." I'm like, "But you're a Sunni too." So like, I mean, so my angle was like, all right, we so the sign is we got to make sure we educate our people too, that they don't get sucked up into like groupthink and believe things about our religion that aren't really part of our religion, right? Because that's how you get statements that Christians who say like, well, I'm a Christian, but I don't believe that. I'm like, but that's what your doctrine teaches. Like, so what? Like, where are you getting it? Are you just making your stuff up like on the fly?
Real quick, Maheen, just on that point, don't you think that a majority, if not most, Christians think like that? Because I've heard that too. Like, well, I don't believe that. I mean, and they say that you just believe according to what you want to believe and what's convenient to you. And I feel like I almost feel like the Christianity religion itself has become that, just in different communities and different churches.
Yeah, I mean, and I think this is one of the things that Juan's church does. I think identify as an issue, because they have a problem with like pastors being lenient, so to speak. I mean, we had this wave in Islam, Muslims today as well, that are people too lenient, you know, but you know, it's a really fine balancing act. You know, there are because there are, for example, that like on the thread, that there are Muslims that are like, yeah, we're Muslim and we have no problem with homosexuality. I'm seeing this on a comment thread.
But our majority religion, our communities, where we follow the traditional text,
structure,
the traditional structure, yes.
But also it seems that like but our approach to things are a little bit more nuanced too than traditional Christianity. For example, on the issue of when a Muslim says they don't agree with homosexuality, what they mean by that is they don't agree with the act of it. They are not penalizing anybody for having same-sex inclinations. Whereas if I'm talking to a conservative Christian pastor,
The whole thing is jacked
he
up.
says that he would tell me that, like, listen, the feeling of homosexuality is a sin that must be repented for, right? So for example, that's why, I think Juan, that's the whole thing. It came up like as he is within a church, there's some churches that had this thing called conversion therapy. A Muslim, how they would navigate someone who comes into the faith as an LGBT, or someone who is Muslim and is LGBTQ, it would be an issue of like, hey, this is your struggle. This is what we acknowledge that this is your inclination. We all have our own like struggles. This is something that you would have to like, you're just gonna have to deal with. And if you fall into it, you fall into it, and you repent, but we all sin, and that's why I think the approach is different a little bit. But the scary thing in all this, even what I just said, though, somebody could take that clip and say that I'm a homophobe, and I think that's the thing that is kind of a red flag in a lot of this. Is like the reaction we're seeing is just like, they call it these kind of churches are like, because a lot of my Muslim friends even practicing, they're like, man, these guys are extreme. They're a cult. And I'm like, they're the canary in the coal mine. You ever heard of that statement? Like, they're getting criticized now. They're the ones right now that are like, we're seeing they're getting hit because they have positions on LGBTQ, etc., that aren't affecting us as a community. But there will come a time when our imams will be considered to be homophobes because we're not performing same-sex marriage. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's like something that we agree with them on a fundamental level of having our faiths protected. There has to be some semblance of that, right? This is not, I don't want to, that's a whole other topic, but it's something that I think is an opportunity to build bridges with these kind of churches. They can believe that Islam is evil, that's their right, but also there are some higher objectives here for like preservation of faith that we can align on, so to speak. I'm not sure if I got canceled, but I may have canceled myself by saying that.
Are we canceled by affiliation? Is that a thing yet? Might be.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
There's cancel affiliation? Dang, bro. I'm up and coming too, bro. What's going on?
But I like that's kind of the last I had to say about it. I want to give you guys the mic for the closing thoughts.
I think ultimately we need to lead we need to lead with love. We need to lead with respect. We need to lead with empathy. We need to understand how that plays into everything. We need to understand human psychology and human nature at the end of the day and why they think the way that they think. But we cannot miss, as humanity, we cannot miss the topic at hand right now and get away from these nuances, if you will, of somebody battling his own respected saints or demons, whatever is going on in the brother's heart or mind. Only God can essentially judge that, right? With this last statement that you made, right? I do think there is hyper doctrine or strictness within Islam as well that also does need to kind of get tamed down. And what I mean by that is like not the religion itself. I think the religion needs to be approached with more grace and love as well. And we need to stop ruling with a sword, right? We need to stop ruling like, oh, this is haram, now we gotta kind of cancel you. We gotta ask why our respected community is feeling what they're feeling. We gotta ask why they're thinking what they're thinking and why they don't want to pursue the sacred knowledge, even on a very minimalistic level. And we'll find somewhere down the line there was some bad representation of Islam that was done. So I think socially we're all responsible how we represent this deen. And we may come across an individual that had it misrepresented to them, whether they're non-Muslim or Muslim, and it's up to us to just kind of educate them and be this messenger and be this vessel, right? So that they can then be able to feel the warmth and the grace and say, hey, I want to go apply my own critical thinking to this based on what I learned from this brother or this sister, and move on forward, right? Because at the end of the day, humans are flawed. We were designed that way. We were manufactured that way. And God isn't flawed at the end of the day, right? And so if we can lead with the same level of grace, and in this scenario, in this case, the constant injustice that is done to the African American male and female, then I think as humanity we can walk in grace and love to better understand them and understand the turmoil that we're going through, and then naturally we can understand the rest of the individuals that we want to affect, including our own souls. That's my personal take on
Cool. Adil, you anything else?
Oh yeah, Bismillah. So in the end of the day, in terms of going back to the whole hypersensitivity and cancel culture, if someone says something or saying or doing something that doesn't resonate with you, you have two options. One, you can ignore it, but if it's really eating you up, if it really affects you, there's a way to address these things. Even in war, there's an art. Even in war, there's an art. You want to go up with somebody and have a conversation with someone, do it in a way which will be sustainable, which will actually be attainable, which will have results. Maheen, you knew what he went through. You had a perspective on him, and you're able to talk to him. If anybody can convince this individual, or at least soften his heart, it would be you. Why? Because you built a connection with them.
Mm-hmm.
So in the end of the day, if we want to see some change in someone, if we want to persuade someone or try to convince somebody, if it's something we want to do, there's a way to do it. And maybe by building that connection with someone, maybe they may not change their position, but at least it'll calm them down. At least it'll calm them down. I think that's what we need to do. Instead of hitting the trigger and going all out, if we approach in a more softer manner, assertive but being soft about it, it'll be a lot more results driven, and you'll see a better solution to that.
Cool. I appreciate it, gentlemen. Adil, your presence is mostly on Instagram, right? On Bearded Servant.
My presence is missed. What are you talking about?
Your presence is mostly on Instagram.
I got TikTok. Alhamdulillah.
TikTok?
That's more Islamic driven. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bearded Servants on
I
TikTok.
did peep your TikTok a little bit, and then so what I'll do, I know you post a lot of your streams. I might even try to get you this video. I could probably like even share if you're more than welcome to post this to your IGTV if you want. It's a long stream. It's almost 2 hours long, but
yeah, I usually I'll probably down the road. I'll probably break it up a little bit. That's what I usually do.
Yeah, but like whenever you need it, we could set it your way. But people could follow you at Bearded Servant on Instagram and TikTok. It's Bearded Servant at Instagram, both the TikTok, right? Yep. Any underscore, nothing? Okay.
Well, Bearded _servant. At Bearded _ servant.
Is that for both IG and TikTok?
Yep.
Okay. And then, Nabeel, what about yourself? Where people can get in touch with you?
I'm mainly on IG. It's Decepticon on IG.
Yeah, that's DECEPTIKHAN, right?
DEC. Hold on.
I don't think Nabeel knows how to spell that, bro. I don't think Nabeel knows how to spell that.
It's like Decepta, like this, like a transformer.
Sorry, I didn't even come up with the name. My cousin randomly came up.
That's pretty good, though, bro. That's pretty good. I like that.
I said, all right, bro, I'll run with it. So it's DECEPTIKHAN.
Get them notes, man. Check out those notes real quick.
Hey, man, and then, people know where to find me. My personal Instagram.
Get them cue cards out, bro.
Straight up, bro.
Yeah.
Straight up.
I'm hoping this is the first of many conversations. So if people on here, I'm hoping to do a live stream with a friend of mine who's at the protest yesterday at Nini's. Looking at this isn't I think what we witnessed in conclusion is just the downfall of a great institute of a noted Chicago institution, right? And I at the end of the day, I say this that for me, it's hard to not feel sad about that. And I talked about it before, for many reasons. It's a place that whenever out of towners come in, I would take them there. It's a place I always try to funnel people to. And then people who want to say that and now there's this campaign that they want to do a lawsuit against them faking halal meat. Juan addressed that this morning. He said, listen, I have all my receipts. You know, people want to come that way. And again, my approach with him is like, listen, I have no reason to like, I'm not going to believe that he's lying to me, right? Unless, you know, the fact that he believes, because some people were like, well, if you believe the religion is evil, then why would you support halal meat? The reality is, you know, his family history, there's Islam in his family history, right? And he believes that halal meat is a better quality meat. So that's why he goes with it, right? He pays a little bit more. You know, his stuff, I mean, again, the food isn't like the cheapest food you can get, right? But, you know, at the end of the day, that's kind of like, but there's just like the sadness about it, that just how it just like unraveled. It's just, there's so much to unpack, and I'm hoping to have more conversations about it. I want to get people who are like a little bit more on the side of being like straight up anti Nini's is canceled. I'm burning my Nini stuff. I'm burning my Chicago native gear. I'm gonna like, you know, I'm on a war path to even, you know, make sure he does not get a pastoral job. If the day job he gets, I'm gonna make sure they know that he's this and that, right?
The fact that you can even think like that, like, just
like what?
troubles me, bro.
What?
The fact that there's individuals that are out there that can think like that's vindictive.
Yeah.
Well, the fact is, there's a lot of people that think like that.
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
a whole other conversation.
There's a whole different conversation.
It's a whole community like that, bro.
Yeah, bro.
Right. And those, and so like, are you not thinking about his wife and his daughter, who's like not even 2 years old yet? He's got another kid on the way.
The
Like, he's gotta feed his
psychological trauma.
family.
The
Yeah.
psychological trauma that can take place.
You know what I'm saying? I'm like, listen, like what's is it just like to satisfy your ego? The silver lining for me is this, that like, we've built a relationship, he and I, over the last year and a half, through Nini's Deli, through going there, having these conversations. The medium may transfer a little bit, and it may be an opportunity for him and I to actually get into deeper conversation about faith and worldviews and things of that sort. So that's what I'm optimistic about. You know, and then just, you know, I've considered him a friend. Nothing that's happened in that sense in the last few days has changed that. But you know, I'll leave it at that. And again, I think it's another opportunity for me to get canceled, because people are saying if you don't hate Juan, we don't F with you. I'm like, you know, all right, well, that there's a sad state of affairs.
Have you had cancel attempts so far?
From stuff I said on Mad Mamluks. So that's why I empathize. But that's why I empathize, though. That's why I really relate to this, because I've had stuff that I've said in satirical ways. People have clipped it, clickbaited it, saying, and it's gone on Twitter. And I've had to say, like, listen, that's like, if you look, there's a context behind it. I was making a joke here. If you actually listen to the entire clip, and also I would say that people, and so because it's happened to me, I think I can relate to that, right? Obviously, nothing to the level. This is like, this is like next level stuff. This is like the Guinness World Records of being canceled, right here, right?
Wait, what is
the downfall of Nini's?
Oh, that.
Like, you know, how
okay,
fast?
Okay.
I
I thought you meant our conversation. I'm like, what?
Yeah, no, not our conversation.
But I'm up and coming, bro.
Yeah, all right, man. Gentlemen, we will
take care, man. Thank you for having us on, Maheen. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Why don't you stay on for a second? I'm going to stop the live stream.
Oh, yeah. That's great.
And then
we'll wrap up.
Yep. And then, like, for those of you right now who are on YouTube, because the Facebook is cut off, you could follow me on Facebook, YouTube. We're on the podcast apps. This will be on audio form at some point. I just got to get off my butt and like extract all these. I got so many videos now, man. I'm just putting them up. We'll be on that. So leave us a 5-star review and let me know. You can reach me info@sultansneakers.com. If there's anyone in the Christian community who wants to chime in, definitely love to have you on. Definitely want to make this an open platform for as many worldviews as possible to like share their thoughts on what happened with Nini's Deli.
Maheen, I want to recommend somebody to you, an individual by the name of Dr. Barry. He's a minister,
okay,
Christian, right? Devoted man, and I think he would be great to speak both on what happened here in Nini's Christian perspective, and also he's African American, so he can speak on the civil rights perspective.
Damn, that'd be a good follow-up, man. That's a good point. That's a really good follow-up to this.
Yeah, so definitely, man. I'll get that from you offline, and I am cutting the recording right now. You guys stay on, and we'll We'll see you guys on the next live stream. Thanks for listening.